I'm just wearing a...
Hello and welcome to Team Ties, the Great British Wrestling podcast for Great British Wrestling, as featured on the Jonas Podcasting Network and RecentRadio.com, as long as we don't swear. But we have extra reason not to swear this week because, of course, this show is hosted by myself, the Great British Attack, with Mr. Andrew Moandi to most. We have Big Daddy Dan, Mr. Daniel Allen, and we have Little Diddy Allen with us this week as well. And Big Dan's gonna interview her about her British wrestling preferences. So I'm gonna kick things off to you, Mr. Daniel Allen. It's nice to have a young British wrestling fan with us. Welcome.
So Evelyn loves British wrestling, has been to a number of British wrestling shows, haven't you?
Yeah.
Probably not as many as me, no. How many British wrestling shows have you been to? How many can you think of?
I don't know.
I can think of at least 3 or 4. But let's start off with a nice, easy question. Who is your favourite wrestler?
Artemis.
Andy, I think you've seen some of Artemis's matches.
I've seen a few of her matches, of course, alongside Adonis Payne as the Odyssey. So I'm guessing they're your favourite tag team?
Are your favourite tag team?
Yes, and also it turns out I also have a Adonis Payne t-shirt and Artemis t-shirt.
There you go. You're catching up with your daddy's collection. You can see all mine back here. Well, a few of mine hung up about at the back here, including Callum Newman, Lycos Jim, Man Like the Reese, who I'm guessing you haven't seen yet because you've been mainly to the Square One and what's Ultimate British Wrestling.
Yeah. We've watched some videos of Man Like DeReese. I've shown Evelyn his entrance. He's the one that does the rapping on his entrance. Smile and nod. But you also really liked Harley Hudson, didn't you, when we watched the PEW shows?
Yeah.
You thought she was...
Well, the first one was kind of a bit funny because the one you showed me where like the roof was so low, they could barely actually do anything.
Even Evelyn could notice that they couldn't go off the top rope.
Yeah. And I actually managed to find that my dad was wearing his his purple with black skulls tie in the background.
And I was doing the ring announcing.
Yeah.
Right. Now, apart from watching shows that I've been on, what other shows do you like watching on television, Aaron?
AEW and WWE.
AEW. And who is your favourite wrestlers you watch on television?
Oh gosh.
You put her on the spot.
I don't know.
Evelyn doesn't do names.
Huh?
Evelyn doesn't do names.
Yeah.
You've enjoyed watching Charlotte Flair before, haven't you?
I can't remember. I don't know.
That's one with the big purple and green robes. All the feathers.
I don't do names.
Don't do names. That's fair enough. You can remember all.
Which is better, WWE or AEW?
Oh, that's a hard question. Even.
Oh.
Whose show do you want to go to?
Oh, why?
It's AEW that's going to Wembley, yes.
I think I might go to AEW.
You want to go to see AEW?
Because they're coming to England and it's like...
I remember the first show I ever went to was WWE. I was 9 years old when I went to a WWE show as a show house. It featured The Undertaker. When he was in it, when he was in his prime, when he was a young Undertaker.
When his knees worked.
When his knees worked, yeah. was a great show. I still remember some of it. I'm sure you'll look forward to AEW All In when they are in Wembley, as you say. I'm sure that's going to be a great show for the whole family.
And it's nice to see that British wrestling and American wrestling is still popular with kids, because you guys play wrestling shows at school, don't you?
We used to. It's okay. You can admit to it.
Health and safety gone mad. Right, Evelyn, do you want to say goodbye to everybody? No? Okay.
Because that means it's bedtime.
Because that means it's bedtime. But we have got some important things to talk about on British wrestling, including about wrestling schools.
Yes, we do.
Training to be wrestlers. So
What are they called and where are they?
There's one in Hitchin, and it's called Square One Academy, and it's a very, very good wrestling training school.
Okay. I do pretty good high kicks.
Would you like to go along to Square One Academy one day?
Yes.
You've heard it here first. We're going to be going along to Square One Academy, and I'll tell you what, we'll even do a little report on it. How's that?
That
Wonderful.
sounds like a fantastic idea.
So you'll come back on the podcast and tell us all about the wrestling school, yeah?
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Have a good night, darling.
Also, please don't tickle my shoulder blades.
As if I tickle your shoulder blades.
You were!
Right.
That was a lot of fun. It's nice to hear from the kids.
It always is. And genuinely, to see British wrestling being taken in by kids, being absorbed, being adored by kids. You see the number of families that go to shows. British wrestling is a family institution, and we need to talk more about that.
We certainly do. Although I was watching some classics recently on YouTube from the WOS days. And my gosh, I tell you what British wrestling needs. The old nanas. Where are the old nanas gone from British wrestling?
Watch phenomenally wrestling.
They literally filled the arenas with nanas.
I'll tell you what, Kean Kelly, you watch the Sly Tactician when he does his entrances, he looks for those ladies that will appreciate him.
It's a loss, and we need to bring it back. So we're going to cover a couple of things that we didn't get to cover last time because we just didn't have enough time. Most and foremost was a great British legend put his boots in the middle of the rings and walked away and retired again.
Again, granted.
You know, that is wrestling. They did, but Doug Williams left his boots in the ring. Do you know which promotion it was he was performing at where he left the ring?
I can't remember. It wasn't. It wasn't one of the big three.
No,
I think is putting it. But yeah, I mean, I believe this is because he's going to be having knee replacement surgery. I believe it's knee.
Mm.
And he had a beautiful couple of years back to give back to British wrestling, and he did that. He went around different promotions, and he was willing to be in a rumble in a promotion with a lot of people where it was even their first match, and they got to have their first match in a rumble with Doug Williams. I mean, how massive is that?
That is absolutely huge. He went back to the States briefly. I think, didn't he briefly become the NWA Tag Team Champion alongside DBS Jr.?
I believe
David
so.
Boy Smith Jr. I think they were calling themselves the Commonwealth Connection at the time.
Indeed.
That was absolutely fantastic to see. But again, on YouTube, you can find it's really good if you want something to watch. It's a couple of hours. It's the best of Doug Williams at FWA, Frontier Wrestling Alliance from Portsmouth. You get to see Andy Quilden as a referee. Obviously, the owner of Rev Pro UK. You get to see him performing his thing as a. But he was this huge link that kept British wrestling on the map for a period. After the collapse, Regal's doing his thing. but Doug Williams was then came along and he helped to bridge that gap once again, working with ROH, working with Impact Wrestling. See, I know him most from Impact because, as you know, we have mentioned on the channel before, we're not 20-year fans of British wrestling. You know, we'll look into things or we're willing to do our work and our history, but you know, for me, it was kind of the institution of NXT UK that turned me onto what was going on in the British wrestling scene, and even then it was still progress. Rev Pro UK. Now, you know, I do my best to try and follow as many companies as we can to provide a great insight on British wrestling, but I know him best from his days in Impact.
He was brilliant in Impact.
Two-time X Division champion.
Yep,
I believe.
champion.
He was a tag team champion alongside Nick Aldis, so he helped sort of like get Nick Aldis over for a period while he was still, you know, still learning to a degree.
He also tagged with Rob Terry for quite a while. Rob Terry, we'll have to chat about him another time. I liked Rob Terry.
Nothing wrong with Rob Terry. He was a one-time TNA television champion. He was one of the first ROH pure wrestling champions. And yeah, as I say, in the UK, you've got Progress, Rev Pro UK, just so many different promotions, PCW, SWW, WAW. He was a champion in Germany for some time. But yeah, give me your, so as I say, where is it where you first kind of went on to Doug?
Again, it was with TNA. I was a massive TNA fan. And you've got to bear in mind, Doug debuted in 1993. He has been wrestling solidly for 30 years. And he's the kind of wrestler that wrestles solidly for that time as well. He's 50 years old now. He has given so much to British wrestling and been the ambassador, every pun of British wrestling. Because as you say, he did cover that same gap as Regal did, where British wrestling, as was World of Sport, had collapsed. He was the bridge, and he gave that World of Sport with his own technical background as well. And his technical game is fantastic. Really is.
Small tangent here. I wish more people in British wrestling could wrestle the British wrestling style. I don't think there's enough. I watched a show recently. I don't think I saw a lockup to start a match the entire card.
Watch James Mason.
It is amazing. Yeah. But James Melton, again, he's one of the elders. And I'm going to talk about two of them recently. We're going to talk about Zack Sabre Jr. and Jordan Breaks in just a minute, in just a little while, because of Epic Encounters, which was fantastic. But I don't, the amount of British wrestlers there are, not enough of them wrestle the style.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'll tell you who does wrestle the style, who I've seen wrestle the style that isn't what he normally does, but I have seen him do it. It's Maverick Mayhew.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maverick a beautiful British style match. I saw him have an excellent one down in Kent. Absolutely brilliant match he had. And I really think he's against Nino Bryant, funnily enough. Both of them known as high flyers, but they had a proper technical match.
For international, to get out there on those international bookers want you to be able to wrestle that British wrestling style. So I encourage people, watch your tapes, watch WOS, watch Doug Williams, watch William Regal, and watch Nigel McGuinness as well, because, again, he had a great TNA run.
We look forward to seeing what Doug does next and how he moves on to help train, because if Doug Williams doesn't end up working as a trainer somewhere, I will be shocked.
It's a huge loss not to have somebody the caliber of Doug Williams take up a mantle of coaching somewhere. I noticed Dave Mastiff is he's alternative wrestling something. But yeah, he's coaching now. It's old Dave Mastiff. But yeah, definitely Doug Williams. Somebody would like to see, definitely. He'll be missed.
Let's finish off by saying thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, thank you, Doug. Good old bell. APPG Wrestling also met whilst we were on hiatus. Only a couple of weeks, sort of like before we ended our hiatus. Now we've both had a good read through the transcripts. We've both had a good look at the whole concussion talk as well. So, Big Daddy Dan, you are the local councillor. So maybe I'll kind of hand from what I gathered. The conversations were good. And things still need to be done more. But do you want to maybe give a brief oversight of kind of where we're at?
So the first reading of the report, well, the first questions have been made in Parliament. The way it works is the APPG met. They spoke to dozens, I think over 80 people involved in British wrestling to get an idea of what needed to be done. This was brought about for a number of things, including speaking out, which I think we'll talk about a bit more later, and about licensing rules, about making sure that fit and proper people are trainers. And it's come up with a number of suggestions, a number of things that it wants to take to Parliament, to have Parliament review and move ahead. So the first thing they do is take it to Parliament, ask a question of the relevant minister, and then it gets moved on from there.
And the relevant minister in this case was Mr. John Whittingale, who is the Minister of Media, Tourism and Creative Industries.
Sir John Whittingale.
Sir John, yeah.
So I've got the strange feeling he's the kind of person to be very annoyed if you didn't give him his full and proper title.
The Right and Honourable Gentleman, Sir John Whittingale of Culture, Media and Tourism and stuff.
Yes.
Carry on.
In short, I am going to give a very short, this does not represent everything at all by any way, shape or form.
No.
The suggestions are wrestling schools should be treated as a sport, which means that any wrestling trainer that is training under 18s should be DRB checked and be a fit and proper person. However, Mr. Sir John Whittingdale did point out that the way that wording is from when it comes to training people is that anything that is of a sports or entertainment display, the people should already be fit and proper people. So it came across to me that he felt that this should already be covered as far as trainings go by the wording that already exists.
See, again, I guess with training in schools and so forth, as somebody who doesn't train and think, what I just mentioned about traditional British wrestling being involved is shouldn't we go to the schools be also, along with teaching the theatrical display of wrestling, shouldn't it not also teach catch wrestling, Greco wrestling, amateur freestyle wrestling, because those frameworks already exist.
Yeah. Basically, there's been a recent amendment to the Sexual Offences Act 2003 by the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022, meaning that sports coaches are now recognised as being in a position of trust as regards those in their care and the criminal offences linking to that position. The Act states that, to quote, any form of physical recreation that is also engaged in for purposes of competition or display. We believe that includes a range of activities such as wrestling. So it should be that is then covered under the Sexual Offences Act. So they want that to be put more in the licensing aspect as well of shows, so that when wrestling shows go through, there is more notes on the licensing. I am not explaining this well. What we will do is we will put up a link to all of this online. There is already the links online. But one of the big problems that we have as local councillors, and I am a local councillor that sits on licensing, is that when somebody says they want to put on a wrestling show, different areas have different rules on what a wrestling show is. Some of them, like my area, class it in the same as boxing, which is a completely different sport.
Yes.
Boxing, the entire point is to hurt the other person. Wrestling, the entire point is to hopefully not hurt the other person.
But we also must stress that the dangers of concussion and so forth are just as same and valid as it is in boxing. And this is something I actually disagreed with Claire when she was arguing it, saying that, you know, the boxing thing need to be kept separate. There is an element to that, but because of wrestling is dangerous, the risk of concussion is just as high.
Very much
in my opinion.
Now, what they are aiming to do is the all-party political group have recommended that wrestling adopts a set of health and safety standards. And what's really good is the health and safety executive met up with the APPG and agreed the best way forward for the industry is for them to take a lead on new guidelines. The HSE is going to offer support on this. Health and safety executive are awesome. They're the reason people don't die on building sites as much anymore. They're the reason that, you know, you can plug something into the wall and you won't get an electric shock. Health and safety gone mad isn't. Health and safety is what stops you dying. So if we're going to get involved and put in recommendations and rules for putting on British wrestling shows, this is a good thing. We definitely stand behind this.
Now, I saw one thing that somebody really argued against, and this was the whole idea of a doctor or licensed medical paramedic be at shows, which is 100% something I agree with. But I actually saw a promoter trying to argue the fact that you shouldn't have to have a doctor at every show. To have a doctor at every show is going to, you know, when you're running 100 shows a weekend, how's each show going to have a doctor? And what about the payments? Well, you know what? If your first format is about that and not about the safety of your performers, I would much rather there be a strict guideline of how safety should be done at wrestling shows, including doctors and paramedics being at shows, than there be cowboy shows that don't.
I would much rather there was a rule on medically trained people being there, not
maybe
a
necessarily
doctor or a
doctor.
paramedic, because the problem is if you're running a small show with 200 fans, you are going to struggle to finance having a paramedic there, because to have a paramedic means you have to have a vehicle, because they have to have all of the equipment as well. Now, I happen to know there is a wonderful paramedic who works lots of wrestling shows across Berkshire and South Birmingham, because he's an ex-wrestler. He goes along and does loads of these shows because he loves wrestling. And he's an awesome human being. I've met him a couple of times and he's lovely. I think there should be very strict rules about having a trained first aider on site. And by a trained first aider, I don't mean someone that's done the first aid in the workplace course. I mean someone that has actually done first aid training. And if you're a promoter putting on regular shows, do the bloody training yourself. And then you don't have to pay somebody else because you know you're going to be there.
Yeah, that I think that would be quite acceptable. I just, you know, and it's going to the same to performers. You know, I want to be entertained as much as anybody, but I certainly don't want performers to go out there and try to kill themselves to entertain me. It's not what I'm there for. I love the high risk factor and so forth. I love cruiserweight, high speed, and all types of wrestling. But, you know, I do, and we're going to talk about it when we talk about what the next part we're going to talk about. But the whole point is, you know, from an outsider, my point of view, is what the APPG doing so far has been good. It needs to continue. We need to not just think everything's going to be fixed in a minute. And yes, we should always hold the APPG Wrestling accountable if there is any need to, but try not to criticize when they're only trying to help.
And let's bear in mind that the other thing they've recommended is something that we've talked about many, many times and we know won't ever happen, is a trade body.
Yeah. 100%. I've said it, I don't even mind if there's 5 trade bodies that compete against each other. I think that would actually add some interest to British wrestling. But yeah, as they say, it's a long road ahead. I think again there are a lot of people who try to criticize too quickly, and need to maybe hold judgment and let things play out a bit more, as they say in WWE. Let it play out.
So yeah, thank you to the APPG. You're doing wonderful work. The question has been raised. Let's see where we move on from there.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about some new stuff, and let's talk about the match. Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega, Forbidden Door, to 6 stars by David Meltzer. Apparently, it made Will Ospreay the greatest wrestler in the world now because he has more 5 stars than anybody else. Remember, that's just Dave's opinion. You can hold your own. You can call any match you like. You can call whoever you want the greatest wrestler. It's your opinion, and that's all that matters.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment, because you and I have differing opinions on who the better wrestler is in this match.
Yes.
How are your feelings coming out of this specific match about that?
It was an amazing match, wasn't it? It really was. Now we'll talk about that Tiger Driver by Will Ospreay.
Nasty.
Yeah, I'm sure they talked about it beforehand. I'm sure Kenny is, a freak athlete, flexy and whatnot. But I guess this is what I'm trying to say about don't kill yourselves for our entertainment, please.
A Tiger Driver 91 is terrifying to watch. I have no idea what it would be like to take. I've got a strange feeling.
I always thought the Mozzarella one, the one that everyone goes about, that 91 version, was actually he botched it and he didn't get the lift proper.
Nope. Yeah.
And that was the reason he felt like bang on his neck like that. It was Masawa and Kawada. I was always under the opinion that that he was tired, didn't have the full strength to get the elevation, and therefore dropped them in an awkward angle.
It shows the level of trust between the two of them.
Absolutely.
But that entire match was a level of trust between the two of them.
You should hear Stevie Richards talk about it.
Yeah.
He's got his own YouTube show. He breaks down like certain moves, and he breaks down that Tiger Driver. He also breaks down how Will Ospreay is able to do his hidden sword as well. Really, really in depth, and something people should watch, actually, because he's somebody who's gone into health and safety and medic side of things as well. So young wrestlers, go watch Stevie Richards explain moves, because it's brilliant.
Oh, that sounds cool. I'll look at that. I would definitely give this match 6.5 sugars.
Yeah, it's not like you can, but I'm still of the opinion that Will Ospreay is the best wrestler in the world. It is my opinion. I share the same opinion as Dave Meltzer. I do believe the match quality, but how long he's going to be able to keep that up, he's already said this might be his final year for independence.
I would like to put out here my opinion on Kenny Omega, as you know, is that I think that he is the best wrestler in the world.
Yes.
I think that Kenny Omega can have a better, wider variety of matches with anybody on a roster than Will Ospreay can. I think Kenny tells better stories than Ospreay. Ospreay, technically the better wrestler as far as the wrestling goes. Kenny Omega, I feel, can do more with the interviews. Bruv. Can do more with the interviews and more with telling a story in a match with anybody on the card than Ospreay. That's why I think Kenny is the better wrestler.
You know, he has got 10 years on his senior.
And I am absolutely terrified if I ever meet Will Ospreay.
Because I'm sure I think he's one of these people, he does kind of respect the fact that wrestling is just an opinion-based matter. You know, anyone can say anything, it's an opinion. As long as you can at least have some relevant argument to your opinion should always be valid. If you have no basis argument behind it, then your opinion is not valid. I see, for me, I feel like Will Ospreay has that in his locker, that he can have different matches with different people depending on who he's going up against. Maybe not the same storyteller as Kenny, but if we look at the age comparison again, 10 years, you know, that's going to be something that goes with Will Ospreay. Can he be the face? Can he be the heel? Doing out and out? And it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, his contract is up with New Japan at January. This is typical with New Japan contracts. They only typically give international talent 1-year contracts. That's how the Bucks and Kenny Omega got out their contracts originally, because they were only a year basis. So, you know, he has said he's probably going to put a stop to independence by the end of this year. Going to be interesting to see what happens, where he goes. Who knows? Maybe AEW's beckoning maybe too much for. But he's also said he doesn't like America. He doesn't like being in America. Yeah, it could just certainly be something about character.
Yeah. Same as he was not very keen on Canada.
Yeah, I love that build-up. I really did, especially the Bret Hart stuff. I thought it was ridiculously funny.
I do hope they have the match at Wembley, because it will also be interesting to see if the crowd turn Ospreay face for Wembley. It would be a really nice change to the match, the dynamic.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if they do book him in, what match they give him if they do, because, you know, he is not an AEW talent. He is not. He has performed for AEW. Obviously, this last one was Forbidden Door. He showed up on the show to help promote that Forbidden Door. He's not a regular. For him to be on All In, he would have to become a regular. And
as long as they don't put him against MJF for the title.
Yeah.
I can see them doing it because he's a British talent. But there's no way that he would take the title off MJF, which means that I wouldn't want to see the match.
Should British talent be on the card?
Oh, yeah. Trent Seven will be on the card. He's been wrestling quite regularly on Ring of Honor now. They'll use him while they're over here. So Trent definitely be on the card. Zack Sabre. Pac should be. We'll see if he is or not.
Because I know there's been discourse on whether. Now, I want to talk about that first show I ever went to in 1991 as a 9-year-old kid. I only remember 2 things from that show. One, British Bulldog versus The Undertaker. And it was while Undertaker was undefeated or unpinned, he got disqualified in the match, so British Bulldog got the win. The other was the fact that it was opened by a 6-man tag featuring just 6 British wrestlers at the time. And they're the only 2 things I actually remember. And out of that, just because of that, I felt like there should be something. There should be like a pre-show match, 6-man tag or something.
We've already discussed this, and I said then, and I will say again, Tony Khan loves a multi-man match to start these shows. They will have a multi-man British match with an AEW contract, I reckon.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting. I'd like to see it done. Okay, let's move on.
Maybe, hold on, I'm going to jump in again.
Oh, go.
Or maybe a Ring of Honor contract, bearing in mind you've got Nigel McGuinness on the commentary there, and we've got more of a Ring of Honor British history.
Indeed. Good to see Nigel McGuinness over in AEW. I hope they pair him up with Kevin Kelly soon on the commentary, because they used to be so good. So good. Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the big Pro Wrestling Illustrated, PWI, they released their recent issue, and it had a list of prospects from around the world, including UK and Europe. So, let's make the start here, Big Daddy Dan. Man like Doris.
Huge prospect. Was my pick when we did our
You had him as an all-star. I had him as a breakout.
Yeah.
So.
Definite prospect. I can see him going all over the world, following in the footsteps of Dan Maloney, who is also a PWI prospect.
He is, which I'm not sure if I would have maybe had Dan Maloney as a prospect. He had already featured on NXT UK somewhat regularly for a period. And of course, maybe, his whole foray into New Japan, I believe, started probably as they started writing this. So that might have played into a bit of a factor with Dan Maloney. Absolutely phenomenal, and we'll be talking more about Maloney and his recent exploits in New Japan. Ricky Knight Jr.
I was just going to say, while we're talking 0121.
Oh, did they have? Yep, they did. They also had Leon Slater. I did wonder if the writer of this happens to be from the East Midlands.
Yes, I can see where you're coming from with that. Except that all three of those men deserve to be recognised, because Leon Slater, that boy's got potential.
Oh, he certainly does. And his match with Will Ospreay, again, I'll be talking about picking out soon. Yeah. Lucia Lee also made the mix. She is from the East Midlands, which is why I made the joke about whether this person possibly. We also have the likes of Kez Evans from ICW, former ICW champion, Sammy Doyle, who's the current champion over at OTT. They've given us Amira Blair, Angel Hayes, Rio, and Lizzie Evo. What names really stand out for you with regards to some of the people picked?
Lizzie Evo.
100%.
She is phenomenal, as is Rio.
Yeah.
They'd be my two biggest names that I think need to go international. I think Lizzie Evo and Rio are my two biggest names out of that lot. RKJ is great. Kez Evans is great. They're all great. But for me, personally, I love Lizzie Evo and I love Rio.
Now, if you had been asked to pick the PWI prospects, give us 5 men's name and 3 women's name.
5 men's names. Can I just go CPF for that?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
I mean, you certainly could, but if you were to give yourself a little bit more breathing space to think.
Callum Newman.
Mm-hmm.
Warren Banks.
Yeah.
Charles Crowley. Daz Black. And Luke Jacobs, I think, still qualified.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then women's wise, I would go for the She-Wolves. I'm not going to break them up because they're just too good together. So I'm going to keep the She-Wolves together. Ivy. I know I go on about her, but I think she is just absolutely brilliant. And who would I go for my third? Oh, it's difficult, isn't it?
There's some fantastic talents around at the moment.
I'm going to go Harley Hudson.
Super. Let's see if I've got to avoid saying the same names as you've just mentioned now. And I know because Callum Newman and Daz Black would definitely be for me right there, right now. Who else is really standing out as prospects in the George Lyonen, Afraid to Die. He's a fantastic young wrestler coming out at the moment on the East Midlands scene. Scotty Rourke, yeah. Somebody who probably not talked about enough. Great performer. Miles Kamen as well. Miles Better. He's a excellent young performer coming through under Nathan Cruz. I did like your Warren Banks pick, by the way. I think really, Connor Mills. I think he's still deserving of a moment, and he's had a moment. I'm going to be talking about it soon. On the women's side, I think Sapphire Reed is one of the best young wrestlers you can get at the moment, as well as Chantel Jordan. Highly recommend checking out Pro Wrestling E, Chantel Jordan versus Sapphire Reed. It was on the free part of the last show, so it's available on YouTube for free. It's great watch, 15 minutes, excellent match. And LA Taylor, somebody I think is hugely dominant. She's the Demolition Woman, and I think she's going to be a big star in the future. Absolutely. There was also some picks from mainland Europe, and that included Endakara, Brescia Bone Breakers. It's Mirko Morai and Nico Inverrade. Recently performed for Rev Pro UK, currently doing their thing for Big Japan Wrestling. Maria Della Rosa, Stephanie Mays, Baby Allison, Norman Harras, Bam Bam Quay, Pia Tahani. Behind a lot of these guys. Endakara's phenomenal talent. Recently formed for Soft Pro against Leon Slater in it. Brilliant match, one of my favorite matches of this year. Pia Tahani, you've heard me go on about Pia Tahani enough. He is just a phenomenal young talent coming from Hungary. Norman Harras is he is a big 6'3" German guy, and I think there's a huge amount of promise to Norman Harras. Stephanie Mays is a phenomenal kickboxer. She's out injured at the moment, but she's going to be making her comeback soon enough. Maria Della Rosa, again, is somebody I've gone on about quite a few times on this channel about how a fantastic wrestler she is. I wouldn't... Names that I may have thrown in would have been Alice Inc., Agil Blanc, Gullias Jr.,
Maggot.
Prosket, I guess still he's just really breaking out now as a main star. Levaniel would definitely be up there as well. Big fan of Levaniel. In fact, he spent time as WXW champion recently. But he's a phenomenal performer. There's great stuff going on around, not just UK, but in Europe as well. And, we always say support as much independent wrestling as you can. And, get WXWW now. It's well worth it. But, yeah, I think they made some good picks here, the PWI guys. I actually know a person from, not spoken to him, but from Last Minute Wrestling Podcast, who actually put together the list of mainland Europe performers, podcaster from out of Italy. I don't know who did the English one, but I know Gary did, and he was complimentary of. So yeah, I can't, definitely no names I would eliminate anyway. So we'll put it that way. Let's move on to bad news. Yeah,
News.
I guess 1PW possibly seemed done.
Well, that's not what they say.
It's not what they say on their Facebook account. They didn't put one out on Twitter, but they did put one out on Facebook.
Have they put one on Threads?
Possibly. But we're hearing, I'm hearing unpaid talents.
Ooh, that's not good.
I'm hearing possibly unpaid media crew.
That's definitely not good.
You know, we'll talk about the statement they made, but Mid Jordan literally put out, due to unprofessional conduct of the owner of 1PW, decided to pull out of Pro Wrestling Zero, which is also run by Stephen Gauntly, who is one of the people behind 1PW, along with Tyler Devlin, I believe, John from former Powerful TV. Now, I know you had some issues with Stephen when you were, or when we were, or you were invited as press to their show.
Yeah.
You had a bit of a runaround.
I did. At the time afterwards, I just mentioned that I'd not had a great experience at the time, but the show was very good, and I tried to stay professional and polite, and I will do that now. Was I impressed with that person and the way they were towards me? No. Was I impressed with everybody else on the show? Yes. Everybody worked their heart out. The 1PW shows that they put on have been excellent shows. Talent have been phenomenal. The support group that have been there, selling the merch, setting up the ring, taking tickets on the door, have all been really, really lovely. I will be sad if they find themselves out of work. If 1PW continues under another version again, good luck to them. If they don't, we have a lot of British wrestling companies out there.
By the sounds of it, I don't think it's going to happen with Stephen behind it, because I can't imagine, there were, when 1PW came back, there were already people saying, be careful, because of the promoter. And I guess some people have been proven right. Some people have had some egg on their face for the way they defended the promotions, and have actually put out statements saying, look, I went to bat for them and I've been let down. It is a shame. I lamented them for bringing in old talents who I didn't think were worth their price for bringing it, and might be a little bit right there. But I also, hailed them for bringing in talents like Alex Hammerstone, Ace Austin, and Chris Bade, Bullet Club members, bringing in the Rascals, Zachary Wentz, Trey Miguel, the young up-and-coming talent that I felt. Now, you could argue that without those certain big-name older talents, would they have hit their marks? Who knows? But it does seem that they overstretched. Seems to be the biggest factor in it. They didn't work out all of their logistics. People have been let down, from wrestlers to performers to media people to people who set up the rings to the venues that hosted them. People have been let down. I really liked that they were trying to go big. I did. I thought it was great. I love seeing them announce 1,000 people attending shows and so forth. I really did. And for the bad experience that you had and the things, I'm not going to sit here and hate on 1PW. I respect what they tried to do. But yeah, it's a shame. But as you mentioned, there are hundreds of British wrestling promotions out there putting on shows each and every week. There are plenty of places for people to be able to get work and so forth. And yeah, and I guess it goes back to making sure that we do have fit and proper people behind promotions.
Yeah.
So from promoter issues to more promoter issues. Lee McTeer of Progress Wrestling.
Yeah.
Had.
Right, hold on 1 second.
I'm trying to work out how to word it. How to go about it.
We've had a lot of chat about this backstage. What kind of wanker am I? We've had a chat about this on Facebook. The issue we have here is we have heard one side of the story. However, we feel the one side of the story that we've heard is very, very compelling. We would tend to agree with it. And we feel that it is something that needs speaking about because it is a constant issue in British wrestling. Would you agree with that?
I do, and there have been issues between one of the party involved and the promoter for some time, and I'm certainly not saying there's not a deeper scale of sexism within wrestling, but I'm not 100% sure this is 100% due to the fact that she was a female and not more due to the fact that he was dead-eyed on having it out with the other party involved, and he wasn't going to listen to anybody regardless.
There was an argument between three people, of which one of the people was kept out of the argument by one of the others.
Ignored, yeah, which I lament, and that's the part I have a problem with. Is absolutely, don't be so blind in an argument that you can't listen to another party. And there is an aspect here which I'm gonna promoters need to grow thicker skin and need to not argue with fans and media.
Yes.
Do you think Vince McMahon cares what we have to say?
I don't think Vince McMahon is considerable as human. So,
do you think Tony Khan cares what we have all to say?
Yes, that's the problem. I do, because the way he books his matches.
There was a mark I saw that a lot of people calling Lee a mark promoter, a mark whatever. Yet they laud Tony Khan for being a mark promoter. They love Tony Khan for being a mark promoter, and we're going to argue that Lee shouldn't be a mark promoter. No, he should be. I'm glad people in charge of wrestling promotions are fans of wrestling.
And I like what he has done, making Progress a safer place for people, performers, and fans. I do like what he's done with Progress. I think that it should be.
He's made women wrestling a priority at Progress, 2 to 3 women's matches per show. But I'm not discrediting Stephanie's account. If Stephanie feels that, sexist, it's not my place to say if it's sexist or not. I can't tell you if they're, I can say that I would listen to anybody who wants to talk to me about wrestling. I don't care whether you're male, female, whether you're non-binary, whether you're trans, whether I really, I'm willing to listen to you. But I guess, not the 90% that the others may be referring to. And if I'm sure there is a deeper issue of sexism in wrestling, I can't see it because I'm not in those situations to actually see it. I would never want to speak for a woman in any case. But but we do have a lot of prominent females in wrestling and wrestling media, and we should have more. And us as fans should always be willing to listen to as many voices in wrestling.
Yes.
So, but I'd like if I'd allow you to continue now. Sorry.
No, I am happy to leave it at that. We want to acknowledge it. We want to say that we've heard it. We want to say we've heard the voice. We want to say that the story deserves reading. Read the comments online. Follow the person. Look at what they've said.
Yeah, the person in question, she is a fantastic. I really enjoyed her work ever since her work with Rev Pro UK and the work that she does to cover AEW. And yeah, and listen to as many voices as you can on wrestling. Don't always just listen to the same old voices. And respect everyone. Don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Do you think he should put out a statement or comment? Progress or do you see so far have not?
I think that's up to him at the moment. While it's a one-on-one, with one person saying one thing and one person saying the other, I don't personally feel that they need to, but I think they possibly should. But I think it's also entirely up to them.
Yeah. Look, from my experiences of knowingly, I would like to think that he's not, but I cannot tell you if he is or not because I'm not a woman and I'm not in that position. I can't tell you how it is, and we should never take away what anybody has to say. We should always listen. I think that's the best. But let's move on to Progress and the fact that Spike Trevay has now held the Progress World Championship for over 300 days.
Meh.
So what have you thought of? You not thought much of his run?
No. The matches have been good. The story has made the title secondary. So that's why I don't rate it as a run. And that's a personal opinion. Opinions are like bumholes. A lot of people will be calling me one of those right now. But
see, I'm going to be one of those people. I think he's been the brightest spot on Progress. The story between him and Cara Noir sold out the first Progress show to be sold out in God knows how long. You know, even when Will Ospreay got booked, didn't sell it out. But Spike Trevay and Cara Noir did.
Yeah. They sold it out.
Yeah.
Not the belt. That's why I don't rate it as being a great championship run, because it's not been about the belt. It's been about the storyline. Yeah,
I would say that because sometimes in independent wrestling, it's somebody wins a tournament, some mini tournament gets a title shot. So he's had a lot of defenses that have had little to no build, little to no story. The Cara Noir has always been the overarching element to it. So I kind of get what you're saying there. He maybe should have had at least maybe one or two. I feel like he's recaptured a lot of what, and I know to bring up his name's a bit of a thing, what Jimmy Havoc did for Progress all the way back when he was the top villain of Progress. Sometimes it didn't need the build of the show, just the fact that he was the villain of Progress was enough to make people want to see him get beat. And I feel like Spike Trevay has that. People are desperate to see him get beat, and that's a good thing.
I understand where you're coming from. I just don't agree.
Yeah, I feel what needs to be done is for him to beat Kid Lycos in the first, but make sure that there's that Kid Lycos and Spike Trevay becomes the next storyline within his title run. I think that's what it needs, is another story other than just Spike and Kara. We need to move on now, and I think Kid Lycos is that new guy. Have him beat Kid Lycos, shitty manner. Have Kid Lycos win matches, cut promos, have Spike Trevay cutting promos, putting together those videos. He is a master on the microphone, and he elicits a response that not many people can in wrestling. So I've been a fan of it. Big match coming for the Progress and Defy double show. When AEW is in town for All In, the day before, you have Progress and Defy, and you've got Mark Haskins facing Kenta for the Defy World Championship match. So that's going to be the first show. It's the Defy show. Splendid Vile. I am my lips are wet for this match.
This is a match that sells tickets.
This is going to be carnage of beautiful wrestling, and I'm going to eat it up, a lot of it. It's going to be what a match.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be fantastic. It really will. And I don't think anyone will be pulling punches. I think it will be a full-out, full-force, full-speed match. That'll be wonderful.
Yeah, these are two, because on the UK scene, these are two guys who do have very similar wrestling styles. They're very strike heavy. They've got submission games. It's going to be a really, an excellent match. And for that, let's not forget, I just want to shout out Wrestle Tours and Wrestle Bus during the All In show for Wembley, because apparently not a lot of buses running into Wembley that day. Apparently they'll stop. But Wrestle Bus, Wrestle Tours do have you covered, and they're offering lists from Manchester, Liverpool, Cardiff, Leeds, Glasgow, all, to Wembley, back and forth, and on the Saturday and Sunday as well. So you need to get to those shows that we mentioned as well.
And with a wrestling personality on the bus.
Yes, and that as well. It's not particularly, I'm not going to say it's not cheap out there, but if you're struggling to find ways to get in and out, don't want to get a hotel because hotels are absolutely ridiculously expensive, is London.
Mate, bear in mind
this is a great option.
Trains from where these buses are coming from, I actually think it's quite good value.
No doubt it is. It's so, yeah, if you need to get into London those 2 days, get in touch with Wrestle Tours, get in touch with Wrestle Bus, and get yourself down to, because it's going to be an amazing weekend. You've got the Defy Progress show, you've got Pro Wrestling East show, Chocolate Pro show, you've got a Rev Pro UK show at the Copper Box. It's going to be a great weekend of wrestling for the UK.
Definitely, and I'm gutted that I'm working.
Yeah. Now, I just want to shout out Grand Pro Wrestling, who made their return today while we're recording. It was this evening or early in the afternoon. This past Sunday for you guys listening. Grand Pro made their return. They're in the Northwest scene for over 20 years. So hopefully this will be a good returning promotion.
Yeah, good lineup.
Indeed. Do you want some the fallout from Epic Encounters then? I've been teasing it for a while.
Callum Newman versus Leon Slater.
Well, that actually happened on the week before. It was live in London 75, available on Rev Pro on demand. And I would urge every one of you to go watch Callum Newman versus Liam Slater. Put on I've heard people say it was match of the year. No, look, it weren't match of the year. Maybe match of the year for the two of them. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But, let's not forget all the matches we've seen this year. But it is an excellent match. Great match. Leon Slater delivered an excellent promo post-match as well, directed at Will Ospreay. Go watch that match. Two phenomenal young performers. But Epic Encounters itself, we have a new cruiserweight champion in Connor Mills. We have new tag team champions in Subculture. So we were wrong. Apparently, Greedy Souls are not the best team in Wales. Apparently, it's Subculture. We have finally have an undisputed women's champion in Alex Windsor, who turned heel in the same vein. It was great. It was brilliant. We had Luke Jacobs pick up a huge win over Tom Lawler in a great match. Trent Seven picked up a huge win over Charles Samuels. And so the heavyweight scene is getting there, because you've got runs from Luke Jacobs and Trent Seven, who are currently unbeaten in the heavyweight lead up. Ricky Knight Jr. made his return, and obviously he's staking a claim for it. Zack Sabre Jr. has said that he wants a shot at the heavyweight title after he defeated Jordan Breaks in a British Wrestling Technical Classic. He was actually jumped by RKJ following it. It possibly could be RKJ versus Zack Sabre Jr. at the Copper Box. I'm not saying it definitely will be. There's some interesting things happening. And we have a new undisputed British heavyweight champion in Michael Oku, who he just overcame everything Great O'Khan had to throw at him, and he is now the first ever Grand Slam champion of Rev Pro UK, having held the Cruiserweight Championship, the Tag Team Championship, and now holding the Heavyweight Championship. Only two people had done it previously. One of them was Will Ospreay. The other one's a villain who we don't want to mention. He is also the only person to have won all three of those belts. Also won the Super J Cup, the World Tag League, and the Revolution Rumble. So he is the first and only Grandstand champion of Rev Pro UK, Mr. Michael Oku. Now we play. It was a hell of an event. I watched it live on Rev Pro On Demand. The show looked to be absolutely sold out, 1,000-odd people in York Hall. Great atmosphere from the looks of it. And
just looking at this lineup,
the
number of wrestlers that have wrestled at least one match for AEW on this lineup is pretty high.
1, 2.
Ospreay, Sabre Jr., Tom Lawler, Great O'Khan, Trent Seven. Hyan hasn't yet, which is really miraculous.
Probably wrestled on Dark.
No, hasn't yet.
Hasn't?
No,
Okay.
very surprising.
That's really surprising, yeah. She's extended her stay, so she's going to be in here for a lot longer, and obviously said to feud with Alex Windsor, because technically Hyan had eliminated Alex Windsor. She had won, but the referee didn't see it, and then she got smacked with a chair. Didn't happen, exactly. It's definitely worth watching on Rev Pro On Demand. I really, really think people should go out of their way to. And then, of course, there's the Will Ospreay Leon Slater match, which was, of course, phenomenal. Will Ospreay, Leon Slater, great match. Probably give it about 4.5 sugars, not quite got 5, in my opinion. But Dan Maloney was there. He wasn't supposed to be. We were being told that he wasn't there, but no, he was there. He did try to come out and help Leon Slater, but Leon Slater accidentally hit Dan Maloney. This was all while the referee was down, of course. There has to be a referee bump at some point. But Will Ospreay ducked. Leon Slater hit Dan Maloney. Then Will Ospreay just got Leon Slater out using the Tiger Driver 91, although he released it a little bit earlier than he did poor Kenny Omega, so he landed a bit more on the shoulders rather than the back of the neck. After the match, Will Ospreay looked at Dan Maloney, said, as long as I can get to him, I can get to you. And then Dan Maloney drilled Leon Slater. Took out his own weakness.
Yeah.
Bullet Club for life.
Bullet Club for life. He's holding that belt.
Bullet Club for life. Bullet Club for life. Yeah, it's really, really good stuff. Amazing. I love the story here building between Dan and Will. Whether it'll probably more play out in Rev Pro UK than it will in New Japan, I'm assuming, due to the fact that Dan Maloney's a junior, not a heavyweight, and they're a bit stricter over there on their whole keeping the divisions separate. But yeah, go out of your way. We don't review shows anymore, but that is a quick byline of everything that happened because it was, for me, Rev Pro UK right now, they are head and shoulders above every other promotion right now. They're leading the way for me as the number one UK promotion for when it comes to stories, for when it comes to in-ring action. They still need to improve on the fact that they only had one women's match. It didn't involve 4 incredible performers who were given plenty of time to work. I still think it would have been better if they had 2 single matches and then a final match sort of thing for the titles, but I kind of like the way they did it. But they also built that rivalry really, really well over the weeks before it. I think they're going to do a great build towards their Copper Box show. RKJ's back now. Trent Seven turned heel. He attacked Michael Oku right after the show and actually ran off with the championship belt. So Michael Oku won the belt, but Trent Seven went to put it around his waist and hit him with the 7-star lariat and then legged it off with the belt. So it's, yeah, brilliant. Anyway, go watch that. Rev Pro on demand for everybody. But there's a huge return coming to the UK soon.
There is.
Huge.
A gentleman who I got to meet recently in the UK. Mr. Nick Aldis is coming back, and he'll be appearing at Shropshire Wrestling Alliance's Summer Blowout on the 22nd of July. Also appearing at the Summer Blowout show will be Warren Banks, Charles Crowley, Lycos Jim, Shah Samuels, Martin Kirby, and Chantel Jordan. It's quite a lineup, isn't it?
Yeah, Chris Ridgway's just been announced for it as well, and
Wow.
have a feeling that he might be facing Chantel. Let me just clarify this. Some great talent, great opportunity for people to see Nick Aldis in action. We talked about him briefly as part of the whole Chantel Jordan versus Luna Blue, who's another amazing performer you've talked about recently on a show.
Nick Aldis ties together our previous stories about Doug Williams and 1PW as well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he was part of the 1PW first show back, wasn't he?
Yeah. Where he tagged with Doug to reform the British Invasion.
He did, of course he did. You got to see that as well.
I did.
Got to see that live just after Stephen eventually sorted things out.
No, he didn't. Somebody else did who felt sorry for me.
Probably John from Power 4 TV, because he was there as well, and he's always had great respect for us. Of course, he put us on their channel for a long time, didn't he, on Power 4 TV, which was great.
He did.
We don't lament everybody at 1PW.
No,
absolutely
I'm trying to be nice. Trying to be nice.
And I also just want to point out, actually, I should have said it earlier, nobody should be celebrating the death of the company. If there is the death of the company, nobody should be celebrating. It's not something to celebrate.
Brits at Impact. We have had some wonderful British wrestlers at Impact Wrestling. Nick Aldis being one of them, as he's having a world title shot at Slammiversary on the 15th of July against Alex Shelley.
I like the fact that Alex Shelley's got this championship run. because I was such a fan of Alex Shelley and the Motor City Machine Guns. When I was watching TNA on the regular, Alex Shelley was always one of my favorites. It's nice to see him kind of getting his due in a way with this nice title run. But I think it's time to put the title back on Nick Aldis.
Oh God, yeah, he's such a good heavyweight champion.
Absolutely great champion. He did so well with NWA. NWA really absolutely fluffed the ball with whatever they happened between him and Aldis. They're not the only ones, though. We will have Subculture, who will also be part of the TNA Slammiversary, 15th of July. New Rev Pro UK Tag Team Champions.
As of about 4 hours ago.
That's not that long ago. They will be no doubt taking their belts over to Impact Wrestling, and no doubt wearing their belts, and no doubt didn't play any factor into Andy Quilden's decision to put them on top. Absolutely nothing. No, it is great for them to be there, and it's great for them to hold the titles and take them to Impact. And if it is the reason why Andy Quilden, I'm not saying it is, I'm joking at it. If it is, it's not exactly a bad reason to do it.
Yep, and of course we also have Joe Hendry defending his Impact Digital Media Championship against Kenny King.
That should be really good as well. But yeah, Subculture are in a Fatal 4-Way Tag Team Championship match, also featuring Sami Callihan and Rich Swann, Moose and Brian Myers, and the actual tag team champions, Bullet Club's Chris Bay and Ace Austin. So good to see the Brits out there representing. So three matches with British wrestlers in on the Impact Anniversary card. That's not bad.
And Killer Kelly is on the card as well. Obviously not British, but you know, we've got a good link there.
Give me Killer Kelly versus Danny Jordan. Give me Masha Slamovich versus Danny Jordan. And if Jordan Grace was still there, I'd be saying, give me Jordan Grace versus Danny Luna. Because those will all be fantastic matches, and Danny Luna also deserves a bit of spotlight on Impact Wrestling, and not just as a Subculture. She needs to be able to do it on her own. Skipping over to Japan, where we're going to talk about a load of wrestlers absolutely killing it in Japan right now. Starting with Mariah May.
Whoop, whoop. She won the Goddess of Stardom Tag Championship alongside Club Venus stablemate Mina Shirakawa.
Yeah, congratulations first and foremost, Mariah May, absolutely smashing it out there in Stardom. She's such a great fit. I've seen some of the clips. She's mainly been confined to the tag team triple threats, 8-man tags and so forth. She hasn't had huge amounts of time to shine as a single star, but she recently won a Rumble, which has now gained her qualified into the upcoming Stardom Grand Prix, which is their own version of G1 Climax M1 Victory. So she's going to have a chance to hopefully impress as a singles performer. She'll be having to face off against Mina Shirakawa as part of the Blue Star group. She'll also be facing off against the likes of Julia, who just won the NJPW Strong Women's Championship, Utami Hayashita, who is a former Stardom champion, amazing. Meiko is a great performer. Saroya Nu, Momo Watanabe, fantastic wrestler. Mirai Azumi, fantastic wrestler, and Hanan. In the first four-way, I maybe see her possibly picking up 2 or 3 wins in that group. She's got a lot of hard matches in that group. Some of the, but it's gonna be great to see her do that. I've been thinking of possibly reigniting my Stardom, World of Stardom, or We Are Stardom Demand service that they have, just to go back and watch that tag team match, and maybe to follow Mariah May in the Stardom Grand Prix. If you want us to follow Mariah May in the Stardom Grand Prix, put down a comment. If you guys want us to follow that, I will sign up to We Are Stardom on-demand service, and we will follow Mariah May's journey during the Grand Prix. So if you want that, then let us know. Write it in the comments, and we'll make that happen.
Yeah,
because we're good like that.
It all starts on the 23rd of July, but it's not just Stardom. We have Millie McKenzie and Nina Samuels going off to Sendai Girls. Millie McKenzie is returning to Sendai Girls on the 12th, 16th, and 17th of June. So she's already there. She's not going alone. Nina Samuels will be with her, and these matches have been announced. On the 12th, Millie teams with Minunami Rio against Takaski, Miyuki, and Iwatamika. And Nina Samuels will take on Amy.
Yes.
And then on the 16th, Millie McKenzie challenges Asuka Veni for the Sendai World Championship. And Nina teams with Akre and Lena Cross against Mizumi Rio and Manami.
Of course, Yu is the current Pro Wrestling Eve International Champion.
Yeah. And then on the 17th, Millie and Nina team to face Lena Cross and Eurikia Oka. And I've probably butchered every name there because you're the one that watches Sendai Girls, not me.
I actually don't watch Sendai Girls, so I can't help with a lot of the pronunciations on those ones because I don't watch Sendai Girls as much as I had watched Stardom and previously. Great to see Millie McKenzie back in Sendai Girls. Of course, this was a promotion run by her name's gone completely out of my head. NXT UK Women's Champion.
Yes.
Blanked.
In the red.
Satomura. Meiko
Satomura.
Satomura. That's the one. Yes, it's her promotion over in Sendai, Japan. Which is why it's called Sendai Girls.
Chris Ridgway.
Yeah, Pro Wrestling Noah. He recently became a two-time Noah GHC Junior Heavyweight Champion. This time alongside Daga, which is still part of the Stinger group. Daga is Mexican strong style, former partner of Tessa Blanchard. Big fan of Daga, actually. He's a great wrestler. Perfect partner for Chris Ridgway over in Japan right now. They defeated Tatsuki and Yohei, who are actually stablemates of Jack Morris as part of the good-looking guys over in and this happened at Noah's Star Navigation 2023. It's available in Wrestle Universe. Excellent. Great to see Chris Ridgway doing well over in Pro Wrestling Noah. But speaking of junior heavyweight tag team championships, another British wrestler has become a junior heavyweight tag team champion in Japan. Would you like to tell us who that is?
Mr. Daniel Maloney.
It is. He's teaming with Clark Connors as part of the Bullet Club's War Dogs. Bullet Club War Dogs apparently is what their thing is. But Clark Connors and Dan Maloney defeated United Empires, Francisco Akira and TJ Perkins, Catch 2-2 at NJPW Strong Independence Day 2023, Day 1.
Pretty cool.
Indeed. On top of that, Gabriel Kidd won the NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team Championships alongside Alex Coughlin, again, Bullet Club War Dogs. They defeated Bishamon, Hiroki Goto, and Yoshihashi on day 1. They actually then faced off against Bishamon on day 2 as well, but that was for the NJPW IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. Unfortunately, they failed on that occasion, so rivalry here building between Bishamon and United Empires, Gabriel Kidd and Clark Connors. But congratulations, obviously Dan Maloney impressed during the junior heavyweight tournament. They extended his contract. They put a junior heavyweight tag team championship on him. this whole new Bullet Club is ferocious and vicious. I love it. The backstage interviews have been awesome. But Gabriel Kidd's going to have a chance to impress as a singles performer in NJPW, as he is part of the G1 Climax. He is in Block A, where he'll be facing off against the likes of IWGP champion Sanada, Shota Umino, Ren Narita, Yota Tsuji, Hikuleo, Chase Owens, and Pro Wrestling Noah's Kaito Kiyoma.
Wow, what a block.
Yeah, he's had a lot of things to say, especially about the three people who've been dubbed the new Three Musketeers of New Japan, which happen to be Ren Narita, Shota Umino, and Yota Tsuji. He's had plenty to say about those three. He's also had plenty to say about Noah's Kaito Kiyoma because they're the same age, and of course Kiyoma's already been like Pro Wrestling Noah World Champion heavyweight. So he's had a lot to say about Kiyoma. I see him picking up a few points, but I don't see him progressing from the group. I can't. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. I don't see his way through in that group. I expect him to pick up some big wins, but with Sanada and Kiyoma in the group, I don't see him.
I'm going to go through the other groups quite quickly.
Go for it.
Because I've seen that we've been on for nearly 2 hours already.
Yeah.
Will Ospreay is in B block with Kazuchika Okada, Yoshihashi, Tangaloa, El Phantasmo, Taichi, and Great Okan and Kenta. Again, what a phenomenal block.
Probably I assume Will Ospreay and Okada will advance.
David Finley's in block C with Tamatonga, Tomohiro Ishii, Shigo Tagaki, Mickey Nicholas, who I don't know, Aaron Hanare, Eddie Kingston, and Evil.
Mickey Nichols was part of that Australian tag team that was on NXT for a little while.
Yeah. No. And in Block D, Zack Sabre Jr., Hiroshi Tanahashi, Tetsuya Naito, Hiroki Goto, Toru Yano, Shane Haste, Jeff Cobb, and Alex Coughlin.
I can see Sabre, Finley, and Ospreay all making it through their groups because there'll be 2 people from each block. Moves on to the finals, leaves 8 people. Then it's an 8-man elimination tournament. It all starts on the 15th of July. It all concludes on the 13th of August. Again, if you want us to follow it, if you want us to follow the G1 Climax, to follow the boys over there in the G1 Climax, let us know in the comments. I'll arrange to renew my njpwworld.com. Pro Wrestling Noah have got their own version, which is the N1 Victory, which will be there will be 2 British wrestlers making their names known in those tournaments. In Block A, you have Jack Morris, who's got Jake Lee, Keno, Masa Kitayama, Yoshiki Inamura, Timothy Thatcher, Adam Brooks, and Yuki Yoshikai. I don't think he's going to progress. I think he'll do better than last time, but I don't see him coming out on top of the group. B block, you've got the big man, Saxon Huxley. He's got the likes of Go Shiozaki, Nakajima, Hileo Del, Dr. Wagner Jr., Manabu Soya, Daike Inaba, Lance Anoa'i, the cousin of Roman Reigns, and Yuma Anazai. I've probably butchered a few names. I don't watch Noah as much as I watch New Japan. That all kicks off on the 6th of August, and that runs through all the way to the 3rd of September. Again, maybe let us know. We might follow it. If you want us to follow it, put it in the comments, say follow the N1 Victory, and we will do. A couple of shout outs to a couple of European performers who are off to Japan. Aguil Blanc has, I mentioned him earlier, French luchador. He is going over to New Japan to do a tour with All Japan Wrestling, AJPW. We've also got Tristan Archer, He's also off to Japan. He's going to be working with Big Japan Wrestling. And congratulations to both, especially Tristan Archer. We had him on the show. I've interviewed him. He's a phenomenal guy. He talked about his love of Japanese wrestling and his want to do a tour in Japan. And so congratulations both to Gil Blanc and Tristan Archer. I heard Igil Blanc just tore the house down against Michael Oku for WXW last night. The night before he faced Great Ogani, he was in Germany fighting Igil Blanc. Wow. And there is a great European performer who's just returned from Japan from a tour with Big Japan Wrestling. His name is Endokar. He is the Turkish Assassin. He will be joining us this Tuesday for an interview, which will be releasing next week. So definitely tune in for our interview with the Turkish Assassin, Endokar. And we'll be talking about his time in Europe, his time spent in the UK training at the Kamikaze Pro Dojo, and of course, his most recent trip to Big Japan Wrestling. All right, quickly, 2 weeks picks for the UK. Best shows to go see. All kicking off on Friday the 14th is TNT Extreme Thrill Kill in Liverpool. Give us a rundown of this deathmatch tournament and incredible show coming up.
Emerson Jane versus Joey Janela in an unlucky 13 payday match. You just got paid, but it's not a lovely day as you have to staple 13 cash notes on your opponent.
Yep.
Nice. Michael Caden versus Alton Thorne in a light tube log cabin match. More sadistic than anything Lincoln could dream up, this nightmare contains the paradox of light tubes constructed into cabins. Knock on the door at your own peril. Tomby versus Clint Margera in a Pits of Pain match. Execution awaits anyone that steps into this match. Pits of light tubes, carpet grips, gusset plates, and lemons are all there to break your fall nice and gently in the pits. Paul Robinson makes his comeback against B.A. Rose in barbed wire brutality into a no man's land with a match containing over a mile of barbed wire. That's a lot. A fatal four-way elimination final match will then take place to see who goes on to become the winner. We also have Gene Money versus Gangrel. He's fanging and banging in Liverpool. And Charles Crowley will be defending his TNT championship against Session Moth Martina. And Big Effin' Joe has an open challenge. Do you think Joe Janela may be interested?
Probably. He was announced at the show and he hasn't got a match.
I thought he had a match against Emerson Jane in an unlucky 13.
Oh, no, he did. Yeah, okay. But no, so I don't know. Maybe not Joe Janela then. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see who answers Big Effins Joe Open Challenge for the TNT Extreme Championship.
I know who I'd like to see take that on.
Yeah.
A Chapman.
Oh God, Macca. If only, hey. There's plenty of action on Saturday the 15th. There's just you could go to Coliseum Pro Wrestling at the Stanley Arts in London. You can see Jack Selstrom versus Mike Bird. That's Jack Stars versus Mike Bird. Livy Grace versus Ronnie Knox. I'm not sure how the wrestling engineer is going to beat the size of Livy Grace. Zizzy versus Lucia Lee should be a great match. KM Lane versus Jordan Saeed. Hannah Taylor makes her return to pro wrestling in a match against Finnish wrestler Regina Rosendahl. Warren Banks versus Connor Mills is going to be a great match. Plus the 8-7 in a six-man tag. It is Roth Johnson and Remy Atenji in his first time teaming as a member of the 8-7. They've got they're against Yeston Reese, JD Knight, and James Farrell. You're not going to be announcing this one, but I'll still let you announce the matches for PEW.
Rude Awakening is taking place at Stratford-upon-Avon. Lance Rivera will defend against Styx. Alexis Fulcom will take on Alina Blue. Kian Fox versus Adam Bolt. And Serico and George Lydon will take on Franco Fate and Joey Scott. Riley Nova takes on Jason Joshua for the Internet Championship. And Smashing Mike goes one-on-one against Martin Kirby for the first time ever. There will be more matches. There will be some surprises. I know for a fact that a wrestler that has previously wrestled for PEW will be coming back at this show. I can't say who, but it should be very interesting.
Ooh. There are 2 shows in Newcastle. I'll do the first one. It's Wrestling in Newcastle, Summertime Showdown. You got Nathan Cruz versus Dean Olmark in a Veterans Classic. Reese and Rogan versus the Unlikely Lads. Ivy versus Violent Vendetta. Xeonox versus Brady Phillips. Stoker and Lou Nixon versus Isaac North and Rob Drake. Scotty Rourke versus HT Drake, and Mark Mathers versus Joan Phoenix.
And then we also have North Wrestling NCL Thunderstruck. Amir Jordan versus Rampage Brown in a student versus teacher match. Rio versus Mercedes Martinez. Oh, God, I hope I get to watch that. Scotty Too Hotty versus Shreddy, who's making his comeback from injury.
It was last time we were out, we talked about the Puff Open Challenge. And I said it'll be Shreddy to answer it. All right.
Yes.
Ready.
Natalie Sykes and Session Moth versus Eve Bateman and Lana Austin. Rory Coyle and Gangrel, what a match made in heaven, will take on the Landed Gentry in a hair versus career match.
Yeah,
Clint Margera takes on Joey Janela. And Michael Oku and Robbie X in the tag team that we wanted versus Sunshine Machine versus Lycos Jim. That's good. And Battle of the Slaters.
Indeed. Leon Slater. That is a hell of a show. This is the biggest show they've put on for quite some time. It's family friendly. Usually they're over 18 shows only, but this is a family friendly show. It's not at the Anarchy Brewery. I can't tell you where it is, but it's somewhere in Newcastle. And you might as well make a day of it and go see both.
Amen. Sunday 23rd, Ignite Pro Wrestling are in Boreham Wood, and you've got a brilliant main event of Connor Mills versus Smashing Mike versus Corey McRae. Corey McRae, the most underutilized British wrestler going. James Taylor versus Michael Oku. Mark Drew versus Charles Crowley. Scotty Rourke versus Nino Bryant. That'll be amazing. Aluna Blue versus Artemis, who we talked about earlier with Evelyn. And Josh Spicer versus Tommy Lawrence.
Yeah, absolutely. James Taylor, of course, a member of the Rebellion, one of the most underrated tag teams. I think an exposure here against Michael Oak is going to be great for him. Another one of your favorites, Saki P, Sacrifice Pro Wrestling. They've got Shattered Dreams 2023, which is in Bedford. Cy Gregory versus Kent Nelson in a battle of Sacrifice Pro Originals. Alexander Roth defends his Ultimate Sacrifice Championship against Jackson Hart. There's an 8-man tag with the POS versus Guerrilla Warfare, Tony Sin and Kara. Shogun tries to get rid of the Loserweight Championship against Ricky Calvert. Elijah versus Big Wavy Roy Johnson. Boulderama defend the tag team championships against Owen Charles and Kai Payne. And Memes versus Adonis Something. And Artemis is banned from ringside.
Yep.
There you have it. They are some of the best shows we could find coming up in the next 2 weeks. We recommend get yourself out there, go watch those wrestling. There is one thing I wanted to talk about from WXW because I just didn't get a chance. I remember I said I was heartbroken when CPF broke up.
Yep.
Well, Amboss, Robert Dreisker, Lawrence Roman, Icarus and Dover of the Arrows of Hungary. They turned on Dover. They broke up the Arrows of Hungary.
It's just not a good time for tag teams, is it?
No, Icarus has taken sides. He's staying with Amboss, and the Arrows are hungry and no more. And my heart's broken, and I wish the best to Dover and Icarus. Quick side note: they are part of the reason we came back as a podcast because when I saw them at the Super Strong Style 16 weekend, and I went to say hello, the first thing they actually said out of their mouth is, "What's happening with the podcast?" And that made me feel really good. And we'll talk about another person who inspired our return. another time. For now, we just say, as always, support independent wrestling, support British wrestling, support European wrestling, support independent wrestling in America, support independent wrestling podcasts that support independent wrestling. And remember, don't feed those trolls.